Hi everybody, thanks for watching another video. It's Sunday here today. We got the whole family out here. There's Taryn and Ian and Eli. Ian, stop for a second here. You want to say hi? There's Eli. Hi.
Hi!
Putting some paint on the concrete here so that when we start piling that we know where the piles need to be width-wise. So we just went through and marked the silage pile. I don't know if you guys can quite see that here. There's orange paint all the way down. So we mark each side of the pile, and I like to mark it a little bit wider than the pile, and then when we're ready to put plastic on, we'll shave that little bit of edge off to keep the pile similar to what we have it now. So we'll go down and mark probably every 50 feet or so, and that way we can stay on track, and the guys that are in the tractors know where the pile needs to be, and the guys that are in the trucks know where they have to dump. So that's what we're doing today, and hopefully tomorrow we'll be chopping silage, or at least that's the plan anyways. It's a few days later here. It's a Friday today. We got started on earlage here just after lunch, and then they started on silage probably around 3-4 o'clock. We got one chopper on earlage, one chopper on silage. Just got into the first field of silage here. Looks like it's going pretty good so far. He's got a 12-row head on this chopper. Not sure what the model number of this chopper is. I'll have to look at that a little bit closer when I get the chance. The dry matter so far has been 33-34%, so it's right where we want it. The earlage has been around 57% dry matter. That's I'd like to have it maybe a little wetter, but it's in the window for me. So as long as they can keep going pretty steady here, should be pretty good there. Should have some pretty good quality feed off of these first two fields anyways. We'll see how things go as we continue through the harvest season here. We're about, this field's about 1.5 miles south of the dairy. I think he's got 5 trucks with him here today on this field. The earlage is a little bit farther away, and I think he's got 4 trucks with him, but on earlage it's not near the tons per acre. So I haven't been out to that earlage field yet, but as far as I know, I'm assuming they're probably keeping up pretty good with trucks there. Been going pretty good with the scale so far. A little bit of a learning curve for us. We've figured out right away that the scale is set in the wrong mode, so it's not saving the empty weights. So that's kind of a pain in the butt, but they're coming out on Monday, it sounds like, to get that changed so that we don't have to enter in or write down the empty load all the time. Let's take a look at this corn here while we're waiting for the chopper to come by. So it looks like on these cobs here anyways, all or the majority of the kernels have dents in them. That's typically a pretty good sign that we're in the right moisture window, and according to the dry matter samples that we've taken so far, that seems to be the case. We're in a pretty good spot in the field here. The corn is probably 8-9 feet tall, looks like. There's some variation in the field. You can definitely tell some of the poor soil spots in the field. The corn was starting to dry out in those spots, but that's not surprising. It was pretty dry here the last 3-4 weeks, I suppose. But overall, it looks pretty good. And it looks like it's pretty good silage on the concrete when they dump it. He's got the length set pretty good, and the kernel processor is getting all the kernels by the looks of it. Getting them all cracked. We'll take a closer look at that when we get back to the pile here at some point. Next day here, I'm back at the pile. It's a little bit windy right now, so hopefully you guys don't get too much wind noise. They started on earlage and silage again this morning, but we got a little bit of rain last night, and it's just enough to make the plants too wet for the earlage to work. And it sounded like he plugged his chopper up 3 times in about an hour, so I'm sure they were pretty frustrated. So he has 3 machines here, so the third one is just sitting in the yard with a silage head on it. We're going to take that one and cut silage for a few hours at least with 2 machines. And let the sun kind of dry out those corn plants a little bit before they go back to earlage. So we're piling up against the silage that we were feeding there, and kind of build up to the same height, go a little bit higher, and then we'll start coming this way. And my plan is to be able to fit all the silage this year on the concrete, and I think we should be able to do that if we get the pile high enough and packed good enough. So we got the earlage pile on the left here. They started on that last night, and it was going pretty good for a few hours, but for whatever reason it was just enough rain, I guess, to make the plants too wet to plug his spout up all the time. So we've got 2 tractors packing, and when they're in silage and earlage, one will do the earlage and help out a little bit on the silage, while the other one stays on silage all the time. I've got my bucket with me here. I want to go grab a couple samples of this truck and the next truck, and then I'll dry them down and weigh them, and that's how we know what the dry matter of the silage is. They have moisture testers on the chopper also, but I like to confirm it with my own tester, just to make sure that what the chopper says is accurate, because moisture is part of the factor on how we pay our neighbors for our silage. Grab a little bit from this load, just a few handfuls. I'll put them in this bucket, and I'll wait for the next load. So I'll wait for the next load to come in, and then I'll grab a few handfuls of that one also. So basically what we're looking for is cut length, so we want it to be about 1 inch long or maybe a little under, and it looks like that looks pretty good. And then we want to make sure that there are no or very little whole kernels in here. We want all the kernels to be smashed and cracked and split open, so that it's easier for the cow to digest those kernels. And this looks like pretty good silage here. Here comes the second truck. I usually put gloves on when I take these samples because we do put inoculants on all of our silage and earlage, and it can make you get a stomach ache if you end up with some of that in your system. These fields of silage and earlage that we're working on now, they're both fields of our neighbors. The silage field we put manure on last fall. That corn looks pretty good, and I haven't been out to the earlage field yet. I get going on that this afternoon or tomorrow again. I'll drive out there and see how that corn is looking, but from the few spots that I walked in the field before we started, that looked like it was going to be pretty good corn also. About half to 3/4 of the silage we grow on our own fields, and the rest we purchase from our neighbors. And we purchase all of the earlage from our neighbors typically. So I'm back by the scale building here. That's where I've got our moisture tester. Sam and Noemi are in here. They're taking the weights of the trucks and keeping track of which fields they're coming from. Should be easy here this morning, or today anyways, if they're all coming from the same field. You guys want to say hi?
Hi.
So basically how it works is we'll put 100 grams in this cup. See the scale, you guys are not going to be able to see that. Grams. And then we'll put it on this, which is basically going to cook all the moisture out of it, and we'll run that for an hour. And then we'll test or we'll check the weight, and then we'll do another 10 minutes to make sure it hasn't changed, and that's the dry matter of the silage. The dry matter and the moisture content of the silage and the earlage is really pretty critical. We want the silage to be mature enough, and we want the earlage to be mature enough that the kernels have a lot of starch in them. We also don't want it to get too dry, because then it affects the digestibility of the silage and earlage. And it also makes a difference as far as storing it. If silage is too wet or too dry, it doesn't ferment properly. It needs to be in that 30 to up to 40 even, it ferments good. But we really want to be in that 32 to 35% dry matter is ideal. And if we're a little bit wetter, a little bit drier works too, but that's the range that we're shooting for. So it's pretty important for us to watch that as we're leading up to silage harvest, and throughout silage harvest, picking the fields to go to next, to make sure that we stay in those windows. I'm always checking fields, trying to figure out which fields to start on, which fields to go to next, and both on silage and earlage. Usually the way that things go is we get our silage done, and then we can go into earlage. But with it being dry here the last three weeks to a month, it really pushed that earlage corn along and matured quicker than the silage corn did. And that's why we're doing silage and earlage at the same time. It works good having two machines or two corn choppers, because we can keep going on silage and we can do earlage at the same time, so we're not losing any ground on the silage that's ready to go. there's a lot that goes into making high quality feed for our dairy cows, and we really want to try to make sure that we get the silage and earlage harvested at the right moisture, at the right dry matter, because that's the biggest part of their ration is corn silage, and we're making that here in these next 2 weeks for an entire year plus. We really pay a lot of attention to that, make sure that it's stored properly, covered properly. We put inoculant on it to help with fermentation and to help with preservation in the pile. And it's always a stressful time of year because there's a lot going on, but it's yeah, it always feels good to get started and to be finished with silage, because you know you've got feed for the next year. It's Saturday night here now. Taryn took over from Noemi and Sam here in the scale shack. It's been a few minutes since we saw a truck. They plugged up their earless chopper. Seems like when the humidity gets too high, it just doesn't want to feed through the spout for some reason, because it was going really good all afternoon, and then around 6 o'clock he plugged and they got it unplugged, and then a little bit later plugged again. And now we haven't seen a silage truck for a while yet either, so I'm not sure if they're calling it a day or if they're having issues too. It's 8:30 now, so I figured they'd probably go later than that, but yeah, haven't seen a truck in a while, so maybe that's it for today. And if it is, I guess it's the end of the video. So I appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. You gonna say bye?